Why do people file for the EB-5 visa? Want to take a few minutes to talk about that. Out of our offices in downtown Dubai, I would say about a solid 80% of families that look for this program are doing it for the future benefit of the kids. One of the greatest benefits are of that of access to education. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about how you can unlock the benefits to education with this program, with this visa. So when you become a US person, there's a lot of benefits that are then rewarded to you. For a lot of universities, you have access to lower tuition costs. You have, for some programs, increased acceptance rates, access to federal grants and money. This is huge. And then there's obviously paid internships. So let's talk about my experiences. So when my family moved to the US, we were green card holders. I spent primary school, middle school, high school in the public schools, which obviously the US government pays for. There are no tuition costs associated with that. So my parents were not out of pocket. It was a wonderful springboard for me to continue my education off to the better universities. When I was ready to go off to university, I applied to two schools, UCLA and Berkeley. Got into my dream school at UCLA. And there, my tuition costs were a fraction of what international students paid. I know it was a long time ago, but at the time I paid about $2,500 per semester, whereas international students were paying many times more than that. Because UCLA is funded, and a lot of their programs are funded by taxpayer dollars of the state of California, they have the requirement to look within the state before they look to international students. So being in that state, being a US person, I had a greater chance of being accepted, which I'm thankful for. And so UCLA is one of the schools, for example, that will accept students from the state before they then look abroad. So again, you're getting increased acceptance rates. You have access to federal grants and scholarships. This is huge. So the US government, or the US society as a whole, has a national policy to allow access to education regardless if the student's parents can pay for it or not. So wouldn't it be upsetting if someone had the grades to get into Princeton, but their parents couldn't afford to pay? Because of that notion and that policy, there is the ability for, when you do have a green card, for you to have a lot of your costs associated with tuition, housing, books, transportation. A lot of that the US government helps to pay for. So parents, again, are not out of pocket for the educational expenses for their kids. So the investment of $800,000 for the EB-5 visa sounds like a lot, but if you actually calculate what it costs to send a kid off to school, you can see that even with one child, the program pays itself off. Also, when you're in schools, you don't have the ability to work, have paid internships. A lot of these kids are looking off to go to better graduate schools, maybe medical schools. You need to build a resume to then be able to apply out to these better graduate schools. And when you have a green card, you can have part-time jobs, summer jobs, internships, all that good stuff, whereas international students are left outside that. If you're thinking about sending your kids off to the US for educational purposes, do not think twice. Do the EB-5 visa for the family. Help them get into the better schools. They would have access to then pay for their schooling and then be able to go off to work and have jobs as they study. There's no better way other than this to do it. Let's talk about the requirements of the program. So when you file for your EB-5 Golden Visa, there's really only three requirements. There's a capital investment of $800,000 that you must invest. That is a government requirement. That investment must create 10 jobs. Specifically, a lot of this is again done through government pre-approved projects that you would invest in that would have a minimum capital investment amount of $800,000, and that would help you create the 10 jobs as required for this program. And the most important thing, the reason why you would get approved or denied, is whether you can prove up a lawful source of funds. So that's what our offices do here. We help you gather your documents. We look over your documents before you sign any agreements or before you pay any money. We will tell you based on your documents whether you're going to get an approval or not. I've been doing this for over 10 years and I know what Washington, D.C. is looking for to get you your approval. So your approval really pivots on whether you can prove up your lawful source of funds.